In a painful interview, CNN reporter Caitlin Collins publicly embarrassed Republican Congressman Bob Good, who'd previously endorsed Ron DeSantis in the primary, but is now desperately trying to get back into the good graces of a wrathful Donald Trump, as Trump and his loyalists, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, publicly threaten Republicans they deem disloyal, donors and elected officials alike. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert buttons before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, we have several clips to play in this video. Again, the debasement with which the Republican Party conducts itself is extraordinary. I mean, all of them are almost... they're supposed to be mammals, but they're invertebrates, right? Like no spine whatsoever. Bob Good is certainly not a household name, but he is a major figure in the House Freedom Caucus. So he is a far-right Republican, and he used to be part of the caucus he is part of the caucus that Marjorie Taylor Greene used to be part of. And he is in some serious trouble, not just from Donald Trump, but also from Caitlin Collins and CNN as they pin him to the wall for his hypocrisy and cowardice. We're going to play some of the clips and unpack them together.
I decided to endorse DeSantis in May because I thought, you know what, I can't sit by and watch and then regret that we nominated Trump.
You are on camera saying those things, Congressman.
So she is referring to the fact that he was on camera saying that, listen, I endorse Ron DeSantis because I can't sit back and regret the fact that we endorsed Donald Trump. Well, now Ron DeSantis is out of the race, and that just leaves Donald Trump, the front runner by far, or Nikki Haley, a long shot. So with that in mind, this is Bob Good's response.
Voters across the country are overwhelmingly supporting President Trump, and I support President Trump as well.
Yeah, well, you do say on camera that, you don't want to say those things publicly, but you say them privately. It is notable to hear you say there, though, that you thought DeSantis would be more effective.
The context of how that was said was, I don't criticize President Trump publicly. If somebody asks me privately to answer a question on an issue comparison, I'm going to do that. But the point that I was making is that I'm for Governor DeSantis. I was not against President Trump.
But are you acknowledging that you say things differently publicly than privately? That's what your answer there sounded like, Congressman.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
But, okay.
Of course, that's what he's saying. Listen, I won't publicly say things about Donald Trump, and I'll publicly say different things about Donald Trump. But if somebody asks me in private, then I'll say something else entirely.
Congressman Bob Good, I really appreciate your time explaining how this went from an endorsement of Governor DeSantis to now your endorsement of Donald Trump. We appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us.
So as you can tell, she's not persuaded at all. We've got more clips to play from that interview, but I wanted to get the punchline out particularly quick. Now, when I said that Donald Trump and his loyalists are on the warpath, I'm quite serious. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene in particular feels very emboldened. And listen to what she says. Listen to the verb that she says that they're going to do to disloyal Republicans.
Republican Party. And that's something I'll be saying in my speech tonight. This is a true change for the Republican Party. It says that not only do we support President Trump, we support his policies. And any Republican that isn't willing to adapt these policies, we are completely eradicating from the party.
So if you are not loyal to Donald Trump, if you don't adopt his policies and his approaches, you will be eradicated from the Republican Party. Again, this is a person who's feeling themselves, who's not in a leadership position in the House of Representatives, though for a time she was perceived as the de facto speaker, given her influence over Kevin McCarthy. She's not even part of the Freedom Caucus anymore. They expelled her. More on that in a minute. But Marjorie Taylor Greene has now publicly endorsed Bob Good's primary rival. John McGuire is a Navy SEAL who stood with Donald J. Trump since he came down the escalator. He's a proven warrior with a strong conservative voter record as a Virginia state delegate and state senator. Bob Good is an angry, disloyal MAGA traitor who was caught on camera trashing Donald Trump and doing everything he could to defeat Donald Trump. Bob Good is no good and cannot be trusted. John McGuire will help make America great again, and never Trump rhino Bob Good lied to the people. The choice here is clear. John McGuire is the conservative pro-Trump choice in Virginia's 5th district. So again, Bob Good is in serious trouble because presumably Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing Trump's bidding in this respect. And Caitlin Collins asked Bob Good about Marjorie Taylor Greene's words against him.
Conservative group, obviously, that you chair, but you're facing a primary challenger right now in your race. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Congresswoman, has just endorsed him, saying that you're, as she, and I'm quoting her now, these aren't my words, she said, "You're angry, disloyal MAGA traitor who was caught on camera trashing President Trump." When it comes to your party, what do you think is more important? Is it your conservative record or your support for Donald Trump?
Well, the last part of that is demonstrably false. I've never been caught on camera because I've never done it trashing President Trump. There's a reason why we kicked Marjorie Taylor Greene out of the Freedom Caucus last summer. So she's a disgruntled former member who has an axe to grind. She has some kind of deep-seated hatred towards the Freedom Caucus now. She's been exposed as the fraud and the liar that she is.
Okay, but Congressman,
she's upset because Kevin McCarthy was removed as Speaker, and she has a personal vendetta against people like me who didn't support Kevin McCarthy for Speaker. In terms of me having a primary challenge, I'm not entitled to the nomination. I had to earn it in 2020. I had to earn it in 2022. I have to earn it in 2024. And I believe the people of the 5th District won't let this seat be bought by allies of the former Speaker, by the swamp creatures from
okay,
D.C.
but can
and
I
California.
say one thing, because you don't like, you and Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene don't see eye to eye, but you are on camera very critical of Donald Trump.
And that was the clip that we played initially. So again, it's so funny to see these people. Bob Good, by the way, was one of the 8 Republicans who voted to oust Kevin McCarthy after Matt Gaetz brought up the motion to vacate. It's just so funny to me how these people, you have to almost imagine the contempt that Donald Trump views his pawns, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Bob Good, because Bob Good is simultaneously trying to get back into Trump's good graces, but also, you know, almost like a comic book villain trying to get into the master's good graces, but also fighting with one of the underlings who currently has the master's favor. And it's just this very strange and transparent, insidious dynamic that we've simply never seen in the Democratic Party. But again, it's not just elected Republican Congress people. Donald Trump issued a threat to donors as well recently, and apparently it's backfiring. So first, let me provide the nature of the threat here. So Nikki Birdbrain Haley is very bad for the Republican Party and indeed our country. Her false statements, derogatory comments, yada, 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 yada. This is standard in politics, but no longer with me. Anybody that makes a contribution to Birdbrain from this moment forth will be permanently barred from the MAGA camp. We don't want them and will not accept them because we put America first and always will. So that was the threat that he made, right? To try to, again, neuter Nikki Haley's, her, what's left of her candidacy, that is. But according to the New Republic, it backfired. On Wednesday, as several prominent people in the MAGA camp proceeded to donate to the GOP frontrunner's primary opponent, launching a spontaneous fundraising drive for the South Carolina governor. So, let's see, done. Sarah Matthews, a former Trump deputy press secretary, donated to Nikki Haley as well. So I'm not saying that this is going to be effective, but it's just so fascinating to me to, again, see Republicans bend the knee in such a weak and cowardly way. And Bob Good's problems, again, aren't just Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump. He's getting no sympathy, nor should he, from the mainstream media, and probably won't from the right-wing media either. Caitlin Collins savaged him in that interview. I'll play this other clip. It has less to do with the Trump loyalty aspects, but she fact checks Bob Good pretty brutally when he tries to defend Donald Trump's record with respect to President Biden over domestic energy production.
Is rising. America was energy independent on its way to energy dominance. We had the strongest military that was respected in the world, and no one wanted to challenge us. That's why we didn't get any conflicts when he was president. And Americans are hungry for that again. I think they recognize how much we've suffered under this president. They connected to the terrible policies. And so you're seeing Republicans and many others rallying behind President Trump. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that he's elected.
Well, you mentioned energy dominance. I should note the U.S., of course, right now, as you know, Congressman, is producing more oil than any country in history ever has. But
which is true. Again, it's the ways in which these Republicans just shamelessly lie. It's super gross. I mean, again, it's one of the things that President Biden can be justifiably attacked from the left on, because domestic energy production with respect to drilling and fracking, it is higher under Biden. Now, Donald Trump didn't do anything with respect to addressing climate change, so nothing like the provisions in the IRA. President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act was, whether you like it or not, and whether you think it's sufficient or not, and by the way, it is not sufficient. We have to go far further than that. But it's by far the biggest investment in climate change and renewable energy in the history of this country. And even then, we're still drilling and fracking and producing energy at a higher rate than we ever did under Donald Trump. So anyway, Bob Good is in serious trouble, and other Republicans like him are, but they've made their own bed. This is a cult that they have helped cultivate. They've helped create it. Now they're feeling the consequences of it. I have no sympathy for them. I do have some sympathy for the likes of Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, who have at least took a principled stance, right? Bob Good was a coward. He endorsed Ron DeSantis, not necessarily at a principle, because the second that DeSantis dropped out, he bent the knee once more to Trump, unlike a Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger. This is the future of the Republican Party. Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, they're gone, right? They're not in the Republican Party anymore as elected officials. Mitt Romney in the Senate's on his way out. Bob Good and Marjorie Taylor Greene are two different flavors of the Republican Party going forward with respect to elected officials. And that's not good. That's not good for the country. It's not good for any sort of robust conservative movement, if such a thing is supposed to exist. But it's hilarious to see these people be caught between a rock and a hard place. And kudos to Caitlin Collins for really putting the pressure on. So let me know what you think in the comments.